Next game on the list, David, we got Washington football team versus the Cleveland Browns. Very intriguing matchup tactically, which we'll get to in just a bit. Let me hit you with lines. Look, I'm a seller on Haskins. I like what I saw from Gibson, though. I don't have a great projection, but I will start Gibson this week. McLaurin, I guess if you have him, you can start him. Again, I'm just not a buyer on this offense, other than maybe Logan Thomas, who's still out-targeting basically everybody else. He looks really good. Didn't find the end zone, but he had a lot of opportunity against the Cardinals. The Cleveland Browns, I'm a sit on Baker Mayfield. I think that the Washington defensive line will get to Baker Mayfield and sack him. But Cleveland, it's going to be about the running game this week. I do think both running backs are starts. I have them actually literally both projected within 0.3 points of each other at like a 14-5 and a 14-2. Start your Browns running backs. I think OBJ is a start because I think he'll get some one-on-one matchups on the outside like we saw on Thursday Night Football this past week. And then I sit on... Actually, this is interesting. I have Harrison Bryant over Austin Hooper. So this is one of those analytical things. If you're looking for daily fantasy cheap tight end, I think Austin Hooper could be a sleeper for you. I'm not saying play him in your fantasy leagues, but that's an interesting one because I have him getting in the end zone possibly twice against Washington, which is bizarre. But Harrison Bryant, an outlier. So look for that matchup if you're a daily fantasy player. He's going to probably be like that $2,800 tight end for you. But go ahead and take it away, David.
For me, I'm looking for the real Baker Mayfield. Please stand up. Because I think week 1 we saw bad Baker, and week 2 we saw good Baker. And which guy are we going to get in week 3? I don't know. I think that Washington football team, their defense is a little bit underrated. We saw it. They feasted in a good matchup against a beat-up offensive line against Philadelphia in week 1. They weren't terrible last week. I think probably bad Baker's going to show up this week just because I think a lot of good Baker last week against the Bengals – he was just had so much space. You look at those rollouts, he was outside the pocket. There was not a defender within 15 yards of him. He had clear passing lanes. He had no pressure. And I think the Washington football team is going to put pressure on Baker Mayfield. And I don't think Baker Mayfield performs well under pressure. I think that's been exemplified by his play over the years. He's good when he's not pressured. When he is pressured, he starts to break down a little bit. So talk about the other side. I think Washington's going to be in this game. Antonio Gibson, this could be the coming out party for him. We were hoping for it against Arizona, just like kind of we were hoping for, you mentioned Logan Thomas. We were hoping for that coming out party against Arizona, who was historically bad against the tight end last year. And it was a revenge game narrative for Logan Thomas. Do not drop Logan Thomas, all right? The total stat line was underwhelming. I believe it was 4 receptions, 26 yards. It's not going to blow your mind. He had 9 targets. The targets are there. The chemistry is going to come with the quarterback. This is still his only second game with his quarterback, Haskins. He's right now Washington's number 2 receiver. That's what he is. He's out-targeted Steven Sims in 2 straight games. He's the number 2 receiver. Keep Logan Thomas rostered.
Yeah, and I think Thomas, he also had a very quality red zone target. It's Haskins. If Haskins was playing more precise football, I think he would have a lot more value. And that's really it. I mean, Washington's defense is, I would say right now, they're definitely a playoff defense. It's all about what Haskins can do at quarterback, and I don't think he's there. I mean, I'm on record. I'm not a Washington hater by any means. I know this franchise very well. If people can see behind my shoulder here, maybe I have a Washington football turned back around because I don't have the logo off it. I don't have the updated one. But, I like kind of the team. I like Rivera. I like this defense. What's interesting to me, and you mentioned about Baker Mayfield, we saw in week 1 Cleveland playing Baltimore. Baltimore comes out to a lead. They're really good at stopping the run. So Baker Mayfield has to put the whole team on his shoulders and win the game. He's not that kind of quarterback. He's just not. But when the team can stick to the run like we saw in week 2, suddenly the play action's working. You do these bootlegs. He can hit you. He's an accurate passer. He's good enough to definitely be a factor. So my question about this game is, I know what Cleveland wants to do. Is Washington's strength as a defense, it's rushing the passer. How do you neutralize that? Is you run them to death, and you keep slamming those running backs into the middle of that defensive line, put those fat bodies on you, weigh you down so that in the 3rd and the 4th quarter you're gassed and you can't rush the passer. That's what Cleveland's going to try to do. So this all comes down to what Washington's run offense is going to do, and whether or not good or bad Baker Mayfield, the Jekyll and Hyde, is going to do. It's going to be the yards per carry. I want to see Nick Chubb get another 25 carries in this game, and if they do that, Cleveland will win. I think Cleveland wins this game. Let me hit you with the line, though, David. Washington +7 against the Cleveland Browns. Who do you got?
I'm taking Washington just because, like I said, I think that Cleveland Browns team is a little bit of a fraud. I like Stefanski more than Kitchens. I just
Yeah.
don't think they're going to perform that well other than cake matchups. So I'll take Washington, keeping it at least somewhat close here.
This is going to be a good game. Like, I think it'll be a fun game to watch. And I think that I'm going to have Cleveland. I have Cleveland written down here as 24-20. I think Cleveland wins by 4, so I'll take Washington in the 7 points to cover. This is a very interesting thing for me in terms of defense. Like, I want to see, because we know what Cleveland's going to do. They're going to come out and pound it. And so when they do that, I want to see what Washington's defensive line looks like in the fourth quarter when they're trying to sack the quarterback. I want to see what the defensive backs do when it's one-on-one coverage against OBJ or Landry, like on a seam route or something like that. It's going to be very telling. I think for me, especially as against the spread better here, I'm going to get a lot of answers on Washington's defense. I think they're going to hold up to it, but I think they're going to just get worn down by that Cleveland run game, which is still, when they commit to it, one of the best running games in the NFL. So
Let me jump in right there real quick, too, because I just wanted to look at how Washington has done through 2 games. Because, like you said, they're known defensive line as being good at rushing the passer. But I'm not so sure they're not also good at stopping the run, and that's just not a good defensive line all across the board. You look at the first two games, they've allowed 39 rushes for 145 yards, which is a top 10 as the least amount of rushing yards. They haven't allowed a rushing touchdown through 2 games. So if they can contain Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt early, I do think that it's going to put Baker Mayfield in some pressure spots.
Yeah, for me, and the counterbalance to that, and truly my question is, as an against the spread guy, is Washington. They played Philadelphia without Miles Sanders, so they had Boston Scott, and Boston Scott was even banged up in that game as well. Then they get Arizona, who, look, I like Drake, I like Edmonds, we do, but they're a pass-first team. So is that because Washington's defensive line is good against the run, or is that because they haven't? So this is the test for me. I mean, because Cleveland's good with the run. So if Washington comes out and they stay on that line, like I would say they're probably a top 7 defense in the league. So this is a confirmation week for Washington. I like what they're doing. Defensively, that hasn't been the question mark. But am I going to start betting on them against the spread this week? I would, though. I mean, their defense is good enough to keep them within 7 points of Cleveland. So I like it. But I think Cleveland wins.